Hello, everyone. I'm Sarah Toporov. I am based in Paris, working with Headliner on audience growth stuff, kind of in all different markets. So I'm really happy to be presenting this session. I was thinking about this topic, and does anyone remember Sandra from 2018? The podcast that was produced by Gimlet, when Gimlet had just been bought by Spotify, and everyone was really excited about what that would mean for podcasting. We're all so optimistic. So yeah, Sandra was this really well-produced narrative fiction with a really all-star cast, very Hollywood treatment, and then it was adapted into 5 or 6 different languages, and we were all like, we can do that too. So I think we'll go back. What's happening? So exciting. Anyways, teaser. So a lot of us didn't do that because we don't have Hollywood budgets, and Gimlet has been kind of sold for parts, and what's kind of going on with that. So now that we're kind of beyond the hype cycle of, adapting podcasts for international audiences, I wanted to take a look at who's actually doing that work and how, now that we have these markets have matured and different things are able to scale. So I would like to bring first Henrietta Garib to present Podster. Come on up.
You've already seen my slide number 1. Hi, everybody. My name is Henrietta Garib. I'm Danish. I'm based in Copenhagen, where I run my company called Podster. Podster is almost 3 years old. I started it with 3 other co-founders of mine. And we specialize in licensing existing formats, podcasts, and then adapting them and doing remakes in new languages. It's a super exciting business, I think. In my past, I've been working in the movie industry and publishing industry, and my previous company got acquired by Podimo, who's also a big premium player in podcasting and subscription sales. So to me, this is just another medium platform that's going through a transition phase and cherry picking on some of the already existing models out there using licensing and great content to make it travel. So at Podster, we specialize in scripted formats only, which means that a creator in various markets might be an indie creator, it might be a company, use a script to narrate their podcast. They put a lot of hard work into these scripts. And the main genres that we work with are there for crime, such as true crime or investigation crime. It's fiction, it's history, and documentary, and finally kids. So those are the 5 main genres that we see fit and that we see work in multiple markets. We're going to publish in a 9th language this year, so it's super exciting to try out these things, and I've brought some cases for you to see today. You're welcome to ask me questions afterwards about them also. Our main focus is Northern Europe so far. And those are the markets where we've seen that these genres work the best and travel the best, and there's a high penetration of podcast usage. Some of our partners are distributors in premium platforms like Podimo, for instance, also book streaming players using subscription sales as their main driver, but also very big media houses having news offerings and also producing podcasts in their language. Yeah. How do I switch this here? Yeah. So these are the 2 cases that I've brought with me today. We've done numerous shows within this area and within this past 3 years at Podster. But I brought a crime investigative podcast that we've adapted into numerous languages and a children's podcast, which is actually our own original. So if we dive into the first podcast, which we've named Guilty, ? You meet Samir, who was a 13-year-old boy at the time that got accused for murdering his stepmother. He has a background, he's from Syria. And it's made by a big media company, news company called Aftonbladet in Sweden. It's fully scripted. It's a crime reporter who's called Anas, who set out to see if Samir is actually innocent, being approached by his lawyer 40 years later after this murder of his stepmother. And what's very interesting about this case is obviously the fact that he was a child, that he had a foreign background, and there's also obviously bad police work involved. Because, spoiler alert, it turns out that this guy Samir is innocent and is actually discovered through the podcast. And we've seen numerous examples of this. So the story to us is universally interesting, and why we licensed it, just because some of these themes that we see in licensing formats definitely works in multiple markets. So far, we've produced it in Danish and Finnish and Dutch. In the Netherlands, it actually went to a #1 on Chartable, which is huge for us, especially if you're not even a local Dutch person. It got distributed by DPG Media in the Netherlands, and they even tried to push their own premium platform as a part of launching this specific show with us. That's of course difficult to both have a wanting to go into subscription sale and launching a remake on another language. Nonetheless, the episodes that were free in the open RSS came to a #1 on Chartable. So that fit pretty good. In the other markets, we launched with a podcast player called Podme, which is Schibsted owned, one of the biggest media company in the Nordics. And finally, in Denmark, we launched with a book streaming platforms. So we got numerous interests based on these findings and this shows, and it catered to different needs, whether it be a book streaming platform or a big media conglomerate. The other show, and something that is very close to my own heart, is children's shows. I think we owe kids to do better, especially in audio, and offer them great content outside the world of audiobooks too. In my past, my previous company was a children's book platform called Fairytale. So I built a platform with my co-founder at the time that got acquired by Podimo, as I told you. And therefore, I just know a lot about children's content. So this is the first time that we dived into producing an original at Podster. And it's a true crime series for kids, which in itself is not so commonly known. Kids love everything about bandits and rights and wrongs and prison escape artists and swindlers. So The World's Wildest Bandits is all about those types of criminals who are either really stupid or really smart. So you follow, for instance, 3 men who got away from Alcatraz, the world's obviously most safe prison. You find out how Einstein's brain was stolen, which it was, and divided into 42 parts. And you see how a guy got to run away with the Mona Lisa. These episodes we've made 55 of so far. And the interesting part about this series is that it doesn't just work on audio only. We've managed to sell the book rights for it too. So therefore, there's actually a full printed book now out in Danish, soon to be published in Swedish and Norwegian, by some of the biggest Nordic publishers. I really enjoy working with formats that travel, not just in that specific formats, but also through different platforms and intermediate formats, like books or movies. So BBC Studios, for instance, also just picked up the TV rights for this production as well. So we really try to pick up something that is of interest to the market, utilize that for obviously commercial purposes, but also create some really, really high quality content because that's definitely needed in the podcast area. There seems to be a tendency where everybody says, well, everybody can do a podcast, and I have to say they can't. It requires a lot of work, and you get far by using scripts, because then you've actually done some work ahead of recording. Yeah. So, since this is a brief session, these are some of my learnings. What we look for when licensing is obviously stories with international appeal. A guy recently corrected me and said, don't use global appeal, because there's no such thing, and he's absolutely right. We look in specific market areas and regions that is similar to ours, where we license from and distribute from. The great thing about Podster is that we can actually collaborate with a partner by licensing their show, but also selling something from our back catalog. So it's a give and take relationship with our distributors too. We prefer limited series. We find that recurring series is obviously great, especially if you're running subscription platforms and you have an audience. But as a production company, it seems easier to sell limited series because it's very specific cases. It's usually very focused case, and it works really, really well, even though it's a remake. It's just a universal appeal based on a great story. We prefer if few characters are involved, and obviously it means less voice talent to a cast. So a single narrator is like dream scenario. It doesn't always happen. We can definitely do, in our remakes, we can do rewrites, but using fewer voices is definitely to preferred. AI can help to some extent to cast voices, but as you all know, AI is not perfect, and we want to keep the quality high. And diving into AI, we do use, obviously, ChatGPT. We use sometimes clones for some of our audio productions, with permission, obviously. But we prefer to use, again, human touch, and human editorial work is definitely key to quality production, at least so far. So far, our publishing house, we call ourselves a publishing house, actually. I think most industry players, obviously, in this room will understand what a podcast is. But when you talk to publishing houses, they don't. So I've sort of rebranded our what we're doing as audio series. So again, like you have an audiobook, you have an audio series, surprise. In the TV movie industry, you have one movie or you have a TV series. So it seems to be something that you can work with in terms of changing your terminology. So that's what we do. We're a publishing house producing audio series. Yeah, that's it for me.
All right, and I forgot to mention that we're gonna kind of hear from all three of our speakers to kind of orient them within this space, but then we're gonna quickly move on to, we're gonna have a lot of time for discussion and questions, so please keep your questions in mind as we're going, because hopefully get a good chunk of time at the end. But first, I would like to bring on Jasmine Bayomi from TRZ Media and The Echo, thinking about some real creator perspective on this topic. So give it up for Jasmine.
Hi, y'all. Very often I come to these events and I wear two hats. I was thinking maybe I should have brought two hats, but my hair doesn't lend itself to it. So I'm wearing a TRZ hat and I'm wearing an Echo hat. So let's start with a TRZ hat. Imagine it's bright and yellow. So TRZ is a German podcasting company. We were founded a few years ago by three founders. One of them is basically our German version of John Oliver, very well known. Then his editor-in-chief, Hannah Herbst, so Jan Böhmermann, Hannah Herbst, and then somebody who is very well versed in the kind of universe of public radio, that is Robin Drömer, and he's the CEO of it. So we've mainly been focused on investigations and informative entertainment podcasts. I'm trying to avoid the word infotainment, but that's what it is. So our investigations have been quite successful. We've done this show called Boys Club. It's a limited narrative series. It was chart-breaking, broke all records, most listened to narrative series on Spotify ever, and so on. It was about the abuse of power within Axel Springer. Then we've got this really fun, almost nostalgic show that's a weekly, Too Many Tabs, which we're doing for public radio, where two comedy writers are basically closing their rabbit hole tabs every week. Then I produced a show called Hitze about the last generation, the so-called radical climate activist. It was a limited show, which also was very successful. And then recently we published Sockenpuppenzoo, which is quite a mouthful. It's about how a bunch of neo-Nazis tried to take over Wikipedia as it was just being built a long time ago, 2005, 6, around that time. And most of these things are in German, and they're very, very successful, and we work with these amazing journalists, and my background is journalism as well. I come from international journalism mostly, but I have a heart for creative, artistic, deeply, deeply human audio, and so does Robin, our CEO. And so when I went to him with an idea last year, I was like, hey, I've got this idea. It's going to be in English. I'm just going to do it in my own time. And he's like, wait, tell me about it. And I told him about it. He's like, well, let's try it. And so out came Little Devils, which is our very first ever TRZ original. It's in English, and it is quite different from anything we've done so far. Now the question is, why would we do that? You know, we're quite successful in German. Why would we then start an English show? So Little Devils is 4 episodes. It acted as a test balloon for a thesis that we have. Because basically, everybody kept canceling our favorite shows. But we truly, truly believe that there's an audience for this in the English-speaking market, right? And the fact that Heavyweights pickup, recent re-pickup basically, was announced by the New York Times in a leading article, means that there is a market. There is audiences for this. And there's more shows. Lupita Nyong'o even, you know, trying to get her feet wet and diving into the narrative market, narrative audio market. It shows that there's an audience. People want to listen to it, except for people don't want to pay for it. So our thesis was, hey, can we make something with very, very little money? We made 4 episodes for the, you know, for the amount of 1. Can we make something that could get some critical acclaim? The goal was not to create a blockbuster, but the goal is, hey, can we be seen, and can we, by communicating it, start building a small community? Turns out, yeah, you can. We got picked up in all the relevant newsletters. You know, Rob Rosenthal had me on, which was a dream. So as you can tell, like, I come from a very nerdy creator world, which is awesome because now I'm here. And community is a big, big part of it. So we started building a community of listeners. They were very loyal. We started a Patreon. A few people subscribed, but it wasn't quite enough. We do want to continue. But the question is, how do you continue if the community is there but too small? How can you finance the next round? How can you make this an ongoing show? How can you make this a new international form of Heavyweight, for example? Because the goal was to bring in stories from the Global South and everywhere. So this is the TRZ side of things. And I'm switching my hat now. And I'm putting on my Echo hat. Echo is also something that came out of a moment of frustration. A lot of audio creators are sitting at home being quite lonely in front of their computers. And they want to make art, and they want to be creative, and they want to tell stories. So this is the world that this is for. People who want to kind of stretch and bend and see what else is out there. Very often I've talked to journalists in newsrooms who are like, oh, I wish I could like try something. What about poetry? What about... I couldn't possibly call myself an artist. But, you know, maybe you just haven't had the space to do it. So this is the space for that. And it started off with a cohort of people, of I think 13 people was the first round, and currently we're in the middle of the second round. And they're hand-selected. I select a group of people who are artists, audio artists, and mind you, I don't call them podcasters because what is a podcast even anymore? So we're talking audio artists, journalists, documentarians, whatever it is. and we brought them together out in the countryside, and they created pieces under a certain prompt. And then we had a big listening session, which was completely booked, and it was super, super successful. People got gigs based off of it. Everybody retains their IP, and so people could sell their pieces afterwards. So a few pieces got picked up by the BBC, by Deutschlandfunk. Somebody got picked up for All Things Considered in the US. Some people got gigs, be it like hosting gigs, or got some attention and got hired based off what they do. It is very scrappy. We cook for ourselves. We take buses and trains to get somewhere. It is not a luxury retreat by any means. It is kind of a school trip for audio creators. And so currently we are doing the second round, which is a pan-European round, where I'm from the Global South as well, so I'm part Egyptian, and I've worked in the Global South for a long time, and having a representation of languages and backgrounds is super important to me. So this is a pan-European round where we will have, out of 13 people, they will create pieces in 5 different languages, and they're from 8 different countries in Europe. And and then the next round will be in the Global South this year, but I'm still waiting on like, how it is, the paperwork, but it's happening and it's going to be quite amazing. Let me just say desert. It's going to happen in the desert. And yeah, right now we're looking for small sponsorships, be it like a few €100 or something, just to be able to pay, organizers' fees, for example, or some trips. And so if that's you, just get in touch with me afterwards. And that's it.
And lastly, I would like to bring up not Jill, but Ashu Bahel, who is from Pocket FM and who has kindly stepped in for Jill, who is feeling under the weather. So come on up. Ashu.
Thank you. Hi guys, I'm Ashu Bahel. I represent Pocket FM. I currently lead European market expansion for Pocket FM. Right? I know a lot of people are not familiar with Pocket FM in this room, right? So first, let me tell what Pocket FM is and what the journey has been. Pocket FM is an audio series-based OTT platform. I think we've already understood what audio series is, right? Pocket FM was founded in 2018 in India by 3 engineers. No one had any background in either audio or storytelling at all. All were like completely mathematical minds, right? It discovered out of a thinking that they were taking a lot of hours of traveling to office each day, and they couldn't find anything which could entertain them, right? So one of them figured out that why can't we have something in audio which is more entertaining, non-repetitive like music, non-bookish like an audiobook, but something very different, right? Over 2019 and 2020, we tried multiple things, did multiple pivots with live audios, audiobooks in different formats, short drama series, but nothing worked, right? In 2021, we were able to crack something very unique, which we definitely term as not a podcast, not an audiobook, but an audio series. The format of these audio series is something which is around, it goes up to 100 hours of each series. Each series has 10-minute long episodes for some around 500 episodes. Once we found something like this, we put it out there in the market, and users were clearly hooked to this kind of content. Now, what was the unique nature about this series is that, one, they start with a very high drama, which grabs the user attention in the first second, right? Then they progress and they build character relatability, and every episode end with a large cliffhanger, right? The benefit of doing a long-form audio series was that we could give initial 10, 20, 50 episodes for free, but once users are completely bought into the series, they got so much worried about the main lead, how's the journey gonna be, they started paying for the content, right? And we could easily monetize our content with a lot of users in India. The journey started in India. We thought that, wow, this is something which doesn't exist even anywhere else in the world. We thought that, okay, why can't we do this in US as well, right? We started US market. We found strong welcome from the American users. The kind of shows we got actually had the global appeal. Users caught onto it and started paying us in, like, instead of Indian rupees, they started paying in dollars. So US became a bigger market for us than India. We said, like, if we can do this in India and US, why can't we go even beyond, right? We launched UK in 2024 early. Got a great reception there, and there are a lot of learnings which I'll share in terms of localization of content between US and UK as well. And then the next challenge, we said that if we can do English, we can do Hindi, and other Indian languages, why can't we go to more languages, right? And then we launched Germany, and Germany was the first language which is non-English, non-Hindi for us, right? Launched Germany in November last year. We are currently sitting at around 8 million annual revenue run rate in Germany within 3 months, right? And a majority of revenue we earn is from user subscription, which shows the love users have for this kind of format, right? We believe that somehow through experimentation, we've unlocked something which actually user wants to pay for, right? And that has been a good discovery for us. If we step back and understand like what was different, we now can't actually qualify it as a podcast or an audiobook. Like we said, in TV we have, or in OTT we have multiple different formats. You can't say a web series is same as a documentary or a news show. But in audio, we club everything together as called podcast, right? So in audio also, we need to differentiate this kind of content as audio series, or a news-based podcast, or a conversational podcast, or a documentary-based podcast, right? So audio series is the category we are quite bullish on. We are kind of trying to build it. We're going to expand in newer geographies. We've already also launched Spanish from Mexico, and going to launch French and Italian soon in this year. For us, I think the topic of that presentation is translation. We don't take translation in that right manner, like, because translation is something, again, which is more for a fact-based thing, right? For us who are kind of building these stories, which are audio series, these are more emotional, these are more involving, right? And localization is the right term we use for it, either localization or adaptation, because users are more prone to relate to this kind of content when it's in their own language, in their own culture, and in their own set of sensibilities, right? Hence, localization became the core part of our strategy. We did try translation, but yes, it worked to some extent. But if you want to go deeper, penetrate deeper into market, get more users who are less attuned to global cultures, I think localization is the way to go ahead. The stories we discovered on our journey, I think one challenge we saw that it's not easy to find blockbusters with global appeal, right? So the stories we discovered, actually, like 1 of 100 actually gets a global popularity. Then localization became even core to the strategy, because if we get one story which has a global appeal, we need to maximize the potential from that story across the markets, right? And hence it became the core of our strategy. And like going deeper into how our localization journey started, it actually not started from US, it actually started from India. India is a land of like 100 plus languages and tonalities, right? So we first launched our platform in Hindi, and we thought that if we can do, but Hindi is just 40% of the country, right? Why can't we like expand into Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, other Indian languages? We started Tamil, and our first step was actually to translate, right? But because there are so much cultural nuances in some part of India also, that we figured out that it is not going to work, right? So we then started hiring local writers who understand local nuances, and they started adapting the story in the way the Tamil writer would have written a story, or Tamil audience would have preferred that story, right? And subsequently, we started expanding in India. Our first venture in US also, when we started, we thought that, okay, English is a universal language. There are a lot of Indians who know English, and why don't we then create English content from India and start selling that in US? For the first 6 months, we actually did that, right? Because you get early adopters, we found good, but the traction started to fall down drastically, right? We figured out that the localization, what Indians are doing, they're actually like using the perfect English, what they've learned basis the UK dominance. But once we started adapting these stories using US-based writers and US-based artists, I think we saw a different kind of spike in our adoption of our product, right? And this became another learning for us, that when you go localize, you need to clearly understand the daily life of the people, the daily slang they use, the kind of language they're using in daily life. Like even English can have a different tonalities to it when it's spoken in India versus UK versus US, right? It worked for us, right? And but again, we committed another mistake. When we launched in UK, we said, okay, how different would be UK English versus US English, right? We started with UK content, US content in UK. It worked again initially, but then the performance started to go down. But then we said, let's try to adapt how a UK person would write the story. And we started adapting it basis the UK, and we found again almost 50% improvement in our engagement metrics, right? It worked for us, and then Germany was a no-brainer. No one understood German outside Germany, so we started building the team from scratch in Germany, which actually created the content from scratch in Germany. Again, the same stories with global appeal. It worked really well for us, right? Today, if I have to talk about Pocket FM, we started in 2018. 2021, we started monetizing. In 2021, from $0 revenue to $250 million annual revenue run rate in last month. I think we have traveled a lot. And advertising or the brands just contribute to less than 10% of this. 90% of the revenue is coming from users, which tells us the power of localization, the stories that can travel world. Thank you.
You can go ahead and join us for the discussion. Thank you. Real quick, so yeah, what genres do you specialize in at Pocket FM?
So our key top 3 genres are romance, drama, and fantasy.
Romance, drama, fantasy. When you say romance, is it erotica?
No, it's not erotic.
It's not erotic.
Actually, while doing some of the pivots early 2018 to 2019, we did try erotica, but then we realized that erotica has an initial very high appeal, but the retention is poor.
Okay.
Right? People quickly drop off after a few minutes of the content, and then I think what worked for us is the drama, which has a lot of emotion, a lot of character relatability, rooting for underdog. That's what works.
All right, cool. You mentioned it a little bit, but I'm curious, maybe from Henrietta, what was like sort of your biggest mistake in terms of matching a content to a market? Like, did you just what was something you were like, this is going to be great? We're going to adapt this podcast. It did great in X country. It's going to do great in Y country, and then it just didn't.
Well, we didn't make any mistakes. No, I started out licensing shows from smaller fish, like indie creators, because I thought they would be more likely to say yes to this proposition that I had for them. So one of my first licensing shows was a Polish crime, a true crime podcast. And we adapted that into Swedish. We did put a lot of effort into it. We casted an actress to do the voiceover and everything. And I think it's not so much because it didn't work. It's just too Polish. Because true crime is universally interesting. But I felt like the market of Poland was too far away from Swedish listeners. So the crimes were told and like the stories were really long. The creator had also put in her own emotions on top of these things. So that's why we casted an actor to sort of feel the same way that the Polish creator did. So in hindsight, not the best product to start out with.
And are there any markets in which true crime does not work?
Yes. Spain, for instance, they don't enjoy true crime at all. Yeah. We didn't see it work at all at Podimo, I have to say. So we had a brilliant Spanish guy run that market, but they did not want true crime at all. But they did enjoy talent and politics and entertainment.
I have a lot of questions, but I was wondering if are there any questions from the audience? We have one. If we could get a mic over, I can give you my mic. How about that?
Ashu, I'm going to put you on the spot as a fellow Indian. Really proud of your presentation. I've been doing this for many years, right? Adapting podcasts or creating podcasts from scratch. I just can't wrap my mind around the scale that you've achieved at Pocket FM, right? So Jasmine spoke so passionately about just 4 episodes. And that's when you get personally involved with your content. How does Pocket FM manage the scale of multiple writers and 100 hours of content per month? What is the process? Can you throw any light on that? Because having done this for many years, almost 20 years, I just can't figure out how to produce at scale like that.
I think good question. I think I touched upon in the beginning that none of the founders came from a mindset of a creative background, right? They were engineers. They actually knew how to engineer the process of creating something at scale. We learned creativity as we went ahead in our journey, but anything which was done from day one was to think that how can we entertain, like we think the TAM for audio entertainment is at par with the TAM of video entertainment, right? I'm not talking about the niches, but romance is something which will appeal to everyone, right? So the idea from the day zero was to create something that can scale uh, while making money, because that's an important part of the business, right? So the kind of thinking we put behind every series in terms of how to select blockbuster, again, we don't like do a session with a set of writers in a room. We source thousands of stories when AI is helping us doing that as well, and test around 1,000 stories in a month, right? To match the right user appeal.
How do you test them?
We test them. We have our own proprietary methods, but yeah, we test them live on like social media and see how users.
1,000 stories, sorry.
Yes. Yes. So we have designed processes like that, where earlier when we started, we used to process like 50 stories in a month, right? For testing purpose. And for us, the testing is we just create 1 hour of content in a very short time and see what is the appeal. If the appeal is great, we go and create 5 hours, 10 hours. Eventually, our series is 100 hours long, right? So we can't test a 100-hour series from the onset, but we have devised the process in the way that we break the process into small parts, test it. If it's a green, go ahead, red, stop, or rework on it. Yeah. So I think that's I think design thinking plus the scaling mindset, which brings in that kind of scale in terms of, our production processes are designed in a way. We don't have any production studio or a setup. Everyone operates remotely. All our writers, all our voice artists operate remotely. We have a sound engineer team which also operates remotely, right? The system in a house which we have designed is so smooth and so scalable that it can work across geographies very easily.
So, for example, how many sound engineers would there be on one story?
One story would have a team of 2 sound engineers.
That's it.
That's it.
I had one more question down here, yeah, and then we'll wrap up. But please come bother our speakers afterwards to find out how to make 250 million. Go ahead.
Yes, hello, this is Ioanna from ERT. I'm a broadcast journalist and podcaster, and I was wondering where you locate your next podcast that you want to adapt for other markets, and if you accept pitches. We specialize in children podcasts and young adults, and I would be really interested to know how you locate your new podcast for other markets.
Actually, it's a cold canvas. So I've been checking out the podcast charts to see what is number 1 to 3 in each genre, and I just reach out. And it might be media companies, it might be local creators. Now we go for the stars. We have shows from Sony Music, BBC Sounds, big media companies, and they work really, really well, and it's no surprise to me. So we're always open for business and more licensing.
Thank you.
All right, please continue these discussions throughout the next 2 days. But yeah, we have to hand the stage back to me because I'm also producing the next session on extending your IP. So stick around. Thank you very much to our speakers. Thank you to you.
Okay, thank you, Sarah, and thanks our speakers. It's coffee break time, so grab a coffee, enjoy the Audio Agora, and you're welcome back at 11:25. And remember that there is